For hundreds of thousands of Indian bank retirees locked in the slow-moving gears of SLPC 5561 2016, the MC Singla pension updation case, Karna's story feels less like mythology and more like autobiography. The parallel with Karna, the abandoned child, and MC Singla ex-bankers, the abandoned retirees, is both uncanny and undeniable.
In the Mahabharata, Karna's life is a ledger of injustices: denied birthright, denied respect, denied recognition. He is the warrior who must fight twice as hard for half the dignity. His victories arrive late, his identity revealed only after his death, his greatness acknowledged only when it can no longer change his fate.
No, we're not advocating that retirees, especially super seniors, aged 75 years and over, suffer the same fate as Karna. On the contrary, we are making this comparison as a cautionary tale why retirees deserve justice now, rather than after retirees have exhausted their biological call. Justice after a retiree has passed is like administering medicine after death.
Right? We are making the critical point here that the lessons of Karna has not been learned. Because why else would public sector banks and a government kowtowing to Gen Z continue to run down the clock of bank retirees for no good reason than it can? It is scandalous that retirees in old age, some close to the end of their lives, are treated with such indifference.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm Aditi Sharma, and my co host is Priyanka Chakraborty. Imagine spending like 4 decades building today's India's modern banking system, right? Only to spend your 70s and 80s fighting that exact same system in the Supreme Court just to survive.
Yeah, it sounds almost fictional, honestly.
Right, and today we are unpacking a source document that draws this wild, brilliant parallel between the ongoing MC Singla pension updation case and the tragic hero Karna from the ancient Mahabharata epic.
It really sounds like a stretch at first. I mean, combining modern banking law with ancient mythology, but both of these stories are ultimately about uh, an existential struggle for dignity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating.
You have people fighting for recognition against this massive, slow moving system that, well, feels completely indifferent to their existence.
So let's look at how that indifference actually works. In the Mahabharata, Karna is abandoned as a baby, right?
Yes,
Set adrift in a basket on a river.
exactly. And not because he lacked worth, but because of, rigid societal pressures.
Right? So the document compares Karna in that basket to the retirees who literally built India's nationalized banks. These workers carry the country through massive economic reforms. But then when they retired, the institutions they built abandoned them and just set them adrift in a basket of poverty.
It is um, it's a systemic desertion, and the legal justification they used is where it gets incredibly cynical. The banks lumped these retirees into what they called non uniform pension categories.
Okay, wait, I'm stuck on something here. I hear non uniform categories and it just sounds like standard corporate HR speak. How does a phrase like that actually strand a cohort of retirees without a safety net?
Yes, it sounds pretty harmless, right?
Not if you're an old retiree running out of biological time.
But by labeling them a non uniform category, the banks essentially created a legal loophole.
Oh, really? How?
It allowed them to say, look, you aren't part of a standard employee group, therefore, standard uniform pension protections just don't apply to you. It was a bureaucratic trick to freeze their benefits.
Wait, but usually a pension is a fixed contract when you retire. Why are they legally entitled to an updation years later? Were they asking for some kind of bailout?
No, not a bailout at all. They are fighting for RBI aligned pension updation.
That was the Reserve Bank of India, right?
Yes, the RBI. They already update pensions for their own retirees to match current inflation and wage scales. It is a basic principle of fairness that was baked into early policy discussions. The retirees are just asking for the banks to honor that exact same standard.
But instead, public sector bank retirees, they got trapped in that legal loophole.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you have these 70 and 80-year-olds surviving on outdated stipends while inflation just skyrockets, which obviously forces them into the courtroom. The petition, which is SLPC 55612016, is basically their fight for justice in the Supreme Court.
And the document compares this legal battlefield to Kurukshetra, the site of the Mahabharata's Great War. And in that war, Karna is struck by a devastating curse. During the most critical moment of battle, his chariot wheel sinks into the mud.
And for the retirees, that mud is procedural time and engineered frivolous delayed. The system uses time itself as a weapon.
Right. Oh, 100%. By dragging out the court dates through endless adjournments, the bureaucracy essentially bleeds the retirees out through relentless judicial exhaustion.
The human toll of that injustice is just heartbreaking. You have petitioners literally passing away between hearings. Spouses are left waiting, and children have to inherit their parents' fight.
It is a war of attrition against the elderly, yet they continue to stand strong and take the fight to the banks and the Ministry of Finance. Karna famously found an ally when a king named Duryodhana recognized his worth and lifted him out of obscurity.
But the retirees didn't have a king swoop in to save them. They became their own allies. The document mentions they fought legal fatigue by forming Facebook Jigri Dost, WhatsApp groups, and filing RTIs.
Yes, right to information requests.
Exactly. Using freedom of information laws to basically force the banks to show their math. I mean, you have octogenarians treating complex pension circulars like battle plans.
It's incredible, but it raises a tough question about the nature of justice. If the legal outcome is perpetually stuck in procedural mud and time is running out, what does victory actually look like for these retirees?
Well, sometimes justice is simply recognition, like Karna's true royal lineage finally being revealed.
Yes, exactly. In the epic, that recognition arrives way too late to change Karna's fate, but it completely rewrites his legacy.
Right. The document argues these retirees have already won the moral battle.
They really have. They exposed systemic gaps in Indian pension policy and forced a national spotlight on administrative neglect that was being uh, actively swept under the rug.
And that is exactly why, if you're not a bank retiree, you should care about this story because it might be your future.
That's an absolutely sobering thought.
This isn't just dry banking regulations. It's a masterclass in resilience against institutional existential threat.
It really shows how ordinary citizens can fight an overwhelming bureaucracy and redefine labor rights without giving up.
They just refuse to stay invisible. They turn their hardship into a narrative,
Yes, even if the system meant to erase them, their solidarity ensured they left a lasting legacy.
which leaves us with a lingering question for you to think about. If foundational institutions force their most loyal former employees to spend their twilight years fighting just to be seen, well, how will that ultimately break the loyalty of the next generation of workers?
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave a comment for the algorithm. It ensures our podcast reaches people like you who needs to see this. Namaste.